Hey kiddos, it's that time of year again. Let's do the mid-year book freakout tag. I have no idea if I got those words in the right order. Let's go. Here is the first question. What is the best book that I have read so far in 2024? That's a good question. That's a good question. It's Someone You Can Build a Nest In by John Wiswell. I have no words for how much I love this book. It was so unexpectedly lovely and funny and slightly batshit and a bit gross and unlike anything I've really read before. It's essentially a monster romance, but it's not what you're thinking of when I say monster romance. We follow Shasheshan, who is an amorphous shapeshifter who lives her life as a little blob, well it's not that little, as a blob, like a puddle of ooze in an abandoned manor. That is where she hibernates, that's where she chills out. She is able to draw objects and items into herself to form skeletons. She is able to give herself as many organs, orifices, body parts as she would like, because she is the very literal definition of a shapeshifter. She can look like whatever she wants. And when a group of monster hunters come and invade her manor, she has to disguise herself as a human in order to escape their wrath. And then she stumbles across a lovely lady called Homily, and there is a little bit of a sapphic romance situation going on there while she's trying to escape monster hunters. Now, I don't usually like cases of like mistaken identity, but this one was handled really, really well. It was fucking funny. There's a really nasty villain, and it just... it kind of gave me Backwards Beauty and the Beast vibes, but also nothing like that. It's been a minute since I read the book and I just love it. I love it so much. I got an arc, I got to interview the author for the Fantasy Hive, and I loved it. I loved it so much. That has been the best book that I have read so far this year. Next question is, what is the best sequel you've read so far in 2024? Well, they've kind of all been pants. So, I started a lot of series last year, and this year apparently was when I started reading all the sequels, and they were all just really underwhelming. I've DNF'd a lot of sequels this year, but there are two standout sequels that I would like to mention here. The first being Sunbringer by Hannah Kaner. This is stunning. This is a stunning book, and the level of like enjoyment and tension and like kick-assery going on in this story does not peter off after book one. It just fucking stays constant, and then it amps it up. It was so good. It introduces more characters, it gives you more representation, it gives you more twists, it opens up more of the land, we explore more backstory, and the twist at the end had me like gasping out loud. And it's not often a book does that. So like, Sunbringer definitely takes the award for this one, but I want to give a solid shout out to Drowned Country by Emily Tesh, which is the second in the Silver in the Wood duology. I had only read the first one, I hadn't read the second, and they were both on Everand, so I gave them a reread and then a listen, and it was really good. So Silver in the Wood, if you've read it, is all about forests and sort of being a guardian of the forest and dryads and possessing trees and things like that. Drowned Country leans more towards fairies and the Fae world, but it's still a novella, and yet the world building in it is just class. It's so good. If you want just a really simple set of novellas dealing with like the Green Man and spirits and no nonsense old ladies and cute gay men, like everything else, shit. Don't know what it was with sequels this year. They've just been horrible. My next one is a new release you haven't read yet, but you want to. This is definitely Long Live Evil by Sarah Rees Brennan. I think this is a really interesting premise. I believe it's a story centering around a villain. I'll be honest, I can't remember a lot of the plot right now. Let me just look it up. Oh, so it's a bookworm who prefers fictional men over real life boyfriends, and her life takes a strange turn when she's trapped by magic inside her favourite fantasy series, and she finds herself pitted against her suddenly living and breathing crush, the once and forever Emperor. She becomes the villainess in his tale, and she needs to take control of the narrative before it and the Emperor take control of her fatally. Like, that just sounds so good. It sounds like it's going to upend tropes. It sounds like it's going to take me on like twisty rides that I'm not expecting, and it sounds like it's going to be a fucking good romp. So that is the new release that I want to get my hands on pretty soon. Did I read the new release? Because I did this tag last year. Did I get around to reading whatever I said for that question? Okay, so the two I listed in my video last year, I've got The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi, which I have read and did really enjoy last year. And then I've got Witch King by Martha Wells, which I read this year. And it was fucking terrible and I DNF'd it. So that's depressing, but hey, at least I got around to reading them. We'll check in next year and see if I actually read Long Live Evil by Sarah Rees Brennan. My most anticipated release for the second half of 2024 is A Sorceress Comes to Call by T. Kingfisher. T. Kingfisher is still an author by author for me. I honestly don't know much about this plot. It's just the fact that she's read it, authored it, written it. It's just the fact that T. Kingfisher has written it that is the reason I want to read it. I will read whatever she puts out. I don't always like them, but I will always try them. But I'm also looking forward to A Wild and Ruined Song by Ashley Shuttleworth. This is going to be the fourth book in A Dark and Hollow Star series. I really enjoyed the series, but the third book was a little bit floppy, so I'm kind of hoping we're going to swing back in the fourth book with some more oomph. Otherwise I might have to DNF this series. So I'm looking forward to the fourth book to hopefully put some of that oomph and that energy back in this series so that I start loving it like I did the first two books. Fingers crossed. My biggest disappointment so far of 2024 has been Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands. This book was so boring. I understand that Emily Wilde is supposed to be kind of cozy fantasy. I really enjoyed the first book. I did. I loved the setting, I loved the characters, I really enjoyed the plot, and this book was just dull. There were characters in there that didn't need to be there, that could have easily been cut. They serve no purpose. Nothing happens. There is no real sense of danger despite them complaining about all the danger. And then the end is really, really anticlimactic because it's been building for two books and spoilers, she just walks in, does the thing and walks out again within about 10 minutes. I'm really struggling. Like, I'm not carrying on with the series because I'm now not interested to read about where she's taken this book. It's just not for me. I was so disappointed because this is exactly the sort of book I should be really into and I'm not, and it's sad. So moving on. My biggest surprise of 2024, however, was Scales and Sensibility by Stephanie Burgess. This is Regency romance with dragons, like pet dragons. This was so good. I picked this up on a whim from Everand because I needed something to listen to and nothing on my wish list was available at the time, and this had dragons in it and that the cover looked cool and I really enjoyed it. It's a really low stakes romance with some hijinks, like impersonating people that you're not within a really shitty family, and the villain in this is really like, she's an utterly entitled prick and it's so fun to hate her. The dragons are really endearing. The main character is really like curious and like you really want to root for her, and it's such like a little bundle of joy. It's one of those books where she's got two sisters, so there are two other books in the trilogy that are about her sisters. I haven't got to those yet, but the first one, loved it. I really was not expecting to enjoy it as much as I did enjoy it. Would highly recommend. If Regency romance with pet dragons sounds up your alley. My new favourite author is 100% Jen Lyons, and that's based off of one book. That's based off of one arc, The Sky on Fire, that I read this year. It was just so fun. I haven't read an epic fantasy that enjoyable and that rompy and like fast paced, and everyone was a little bit sarcastic and funny. There were real stakes of danger. There was such cool world building, and I just loved the way that Jen Lyons wrote it. So now I've put everything else she's ever written on my TBR. I really want to get around to read some more books of hers. This made me so excited. The Sky on Fire is also standalone, so if you don't want to jump into a series, I highly, highly recommend it. My new fictional crush. I'm not one for fictional crushes normally, but I will say I did reread the Ninth House series back in January, and most of that cast could get it. Really, I just love the cast of the Ninth House. I don't think there's any character in there that I dislike as a character that I'm not supposed to dislike. And even if I'm supposed to dislike them, I also kind of like them a little bit because they're a bit of a dick. Like, it's just that kind of cast, and just all of them, I love them. Some of them I just want to like squeeze and put in my pocket and carry around and make sure they're okay. My new favourite character is definitely Shasheshan from Someone You Can Build a Nest In, because who doesn't love an amorphous blob of a main character who can build bones out of chains and sticks and twigs and things. She's just, oh, she's so funny. I love her. A book that made me cry. Books don't often make me cry, but when I was doing my library challenge at the beginning of this year and picking books from a prompt that I'd never heard of before, I picked up I Couldn't Love You More by Esther Freud, which is lit fic told from 3 different women's perspectives from 3 different generations. So it's the grandmother, the mother and the daughter. And that was sad. That made me quite emotional. I think that's the closest I've got to crying this year. Do look up trigger warnings, because it's like one of the stories focuses around being pregnant out of wedlock. Is that the phrase? Yeah. Pregnant out of wedlock and being forced to go to a convent where she's treated like shit. Another one's in an abusive relationship, and another one is in a bit of an unhealthy, toxic relationship and trying to find out about her past. So it's a bit of a tough read, but it was also weirdly enjoyable. It's one of those books. A book that made me happy was The Sky on Fire by Jen Lyons. It's a huge standout book for me so far this year. It was just so fun. I won't say everything I just said all over again, but it's just so fun. Please pick up this book. It's out in July. The most beautiful book I bought or received this year was definitely Slewfoot by Brom. This book, if you haven't picked it up, Brom is an illustrator as well as an author, and he is just as good at both crafts, and he puts all of that in his books. So his books, like reading Slewfoot felt like reading a work of art, and the story was fantastic as well. And I just like, he paints in like oil paintings, so his books are illustrated, the covers are always phenomenal. It's like the prettiest book ever, and I kind of regret not buying the hardback. I just have the paperback. I'm kind of debating whether or not I get the hardback to treat myself, because it's easier to display, but definitely Slewfoot by Brom. It's so pretty. What books do I need to read by the end of this year? Now, I am not going to put pressure on myself, because I got real slumpy, and you will have seen already that I've done a big cull of my digital and my physical TBRs. So I'm not going to say I have to read any books. However, I will say that if I want to read things that will make me happy, I think I should definitely start the Dresden Files. I have the first book. I think that will fill the little gap I've got in my heart from the Anita Blake Vampire Hunter series, which turned into erotica, which was not what I wanted. I wanted supernatural monster detective stories. Thank you very much. So if you have recommendations for those, please drop them in the comments. But I definitely want to start that. I definitely want to start The Ruin of Kings by Jen Lyons, because I want to read more Jen Lyons. I also want to read Garlic and the Witch. This is the second book in a graphic novel duology, I think it is, about a piece of garlic that was animated to life by a witch. Along with all the other vegetables in her vegetable garden, and then the vegetables are in charge of gardening her vegetable patch. And the first one is Garlic and the Vampire, and that's a really cute story, and there's one other which is Garlic and the Witch, so I really want to read that. And overall, I think I just want to read more graphic novels. Like, they're pricey, but they're just good, and they're so easy to read. So I think, yeah, that's what by the end of the year, I want to have hopefully read the Dresden Files, the first book, Stormfront, Ruin of Kings, and more graphic novels. That was my mid-year book freakout tag for 2024. Do consider yourself tagged. I love watching these videos so much, and I am nosy as fuck, so please make one. Thank you. Like and subscribe and all that jazz if you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you very much for watching.